Hello and welcome. My name is Jamie. I'm a local dietitian and I am so excited to be able to present to you today on the topic of eating well on a budget. I'm here to help make healthy eating affordable and doable, as well as give you some practical meal planning tips so that you don't have to think about food all the time. I want to ensure that you will be energized for your day. Not only will eating well help you delay chronic disease, it also will help you have clear thinking and manage your stress as you go throughout your day-to-day tasks. Now, I hear you. The most common objection I get when opening up a conversation about eating well is healthy food is just so expensive. So if that's the thought in your head, I hear you. When you're already on a strict budget, grocery shopping and meal planning can really feel overwhelming and stressful. While you are right that food costs are skyrocketing, I do believe that with some intentional planning and with some of the tips that I'm going to share with you over the next couple minutes, you will be able to make the most of every dollar you delegate to food without derailing your other priorities. So let's get started. What exactly do I mean by eating well? Well, eating well is consuming a diet, a variety of wholesome foods that provides a good balance of micronutrients and macronutrients. Now, those are big words, so let me detail that out for you. Macronutrients are proteins, carbs, fats. They're the parts of food that we eat quite a bit of. The micronutrients are those vitamins and minerals that we need in a smaller amount, with enough calories throughout your day to support your energy levels. If you eat too little, you will face fatigue and headaches and poor energy and cravings. And if you eat too much, you'll face energy crashes and inflammation and puffiness and maybe excess weight. The good news is that your body has built-in regulators to help you know how much to eat and when to pause. Now, the bad news is years of maybe ignoring our hunger or eating past fullness can maybe have muted that conversation that you have with your body. But rest assured that with a little mindfulness and a little intuition, you can begin trusting your body again to tell you how much to eat. Let me clarify that eating well is not about perfection. We are not on the all or nothing bandwagon here. It is about eating in alignment with your goals most of the time. Life happens, and if your meal plan is not sustainable, why should we even start? So all through this conversation, we're going to talk about sustainability. If it's not sustainable, there's not really a point, right? Let's start with those basics. You may have learned about eating well off of a pyramid in school. Raise your hand. I know I did. All about the pyramid with those sweets at the top and 11 servings of bread on the bottom. Who eats 11 servings of bread? We don't eat off a pyramid, so I would like to erase that from your memory and talk about 3 macronutrients that you can put on a plate instead. I promise it's going to be far more simple. Let's start with protein. Now, when I say protein, you probably think meats, fish, dairy. There's plant-based proteins as well, nuts and seeds, beans, lentils, legumes. These all are the building blocks of our body. That's what protein does. It gives us strength, it helps our body repair, and it sticks with you longer than any other food. There's a secret there. If you start your day with protein, you will feel satisfied and full throughout the rest of your day. Because the way we start our day is often what we crave the rest of the day. So if you start a donut, no shame in having a donut, but don't be surprised if you want sugar and soda and energy drinks and more sugar as the day goes on. That's just how our body works. Without protein, our blood sugars plummet and we end up making impulse purchases. See, there's the money saving tip. We end up making impulse purchases just trying to sustain our energy and get to the next meal. So I urge you to try to start your day with protein, and we'll get into some of the basics of that shortly. Breakfast seems to be the meal with the least amount of protein. If you look at what foods we have for breakfast, usually it's the donuts and the pastries and the toast. And so a little intention with protein first thing in the morning truly will serve you well. The other macronutrient that I'd like to talk about is carbohydrates. Now, what probably comes to mind is, again, the pastries, the pastas, the toast, the bread, the those grains, and those do contain carbohydrates, but people forget that carbohydrates also include all the fruits, all the vegetables. Yes, kale is a carbohydrate. Now, many people will say, eat less carbs, cut out carbs. And although their intentions may be good, yes, we probably should do less of those refined processed things. The other side of the story is carbs are our energy. Carbs help us think clearly. Carbs stick with us. They give us fuel for our day. So we certainly do not want to eliminate them in their entirety. Instead, I'm going to encourage you to choose the fruits, the veggies, the whole grains, the less refined carbs more often, because it truly will fill you up better, stick with you longer, give you a better energy level, and help you meet those health goals. For example, fruit snacks versus a piece of fruit. I think you can tell me which one is going to be better for your health. Similarly, white bread versus whole grains, or white rice versus brown rice. These are simple shifts that can truly make a difference in how you're feeling throughout your day. Now, the last of those three categories is fats. I don't know about you, but I was raised hearing that fats were bad. I was raised with fat-free products everywhere in the grocery store. And my aunt and my grandma and my mom were talking about switching to low fat and choosing fat-free foods. Now, the truth is not that simple. The truth is not that fat is bad. The truth is that there is good, helpful fats. Fat is another fuel. All of our brain connections are covered in like a sleeping bag of fat. It helps our brain work clearly. Fat also helps us absorb some of our vitamins. What that means is if you create this beautiful salad and you put a fat-free dressing on it, you're actually missing out on some of the vitamin K, some of the vitamin A, some of the vitamin E that are only absorbed in the presence of fat. Why spend money on a fancy salad if you're not going to get everything out of it? So choose full fat versions. Use olive oil, use nuts, use seeds, use those dressings. Don't feel like you need to eliminate those. In fact, the full fat versions are often more satisfying. Therefore, you can get away with a smaller portion. Therefore, you can get away with a cost savings there. So that is what I wanted to share with you about fats. Of course, there are some fats that are harmful for our body, but those are usually the fats that are in those processed refined foods, meaning they went to a factory, they got rearranged and reoriented, and they came back in something that literally will not go bad for 25 years. Those are the fats that we need to eliminate. So more would be gained by focusing on adding in helpful things, plus that helps our brain. See, our brain doesn't like scarcity. Our brain wants to throw a temper tantrum the moment we say, oh, you shouldn't have that, or you should eat less of that. Far more progress is made by adding in the helpful things and allowing that to crowd out the things that maybe aren't as nourishing for our body. Does that make sense? Perfect. So when we discuss putting together a meal or what should I eat, I'm going to encourage you to have those three macronutrients included: protein, carbohydrates, and fat. In fact, we're going to provide you with a handout that in your workbook that's going to help you detail out what those foods may be, so that after this presentation, you can do some practicing. You can put together some meals. Again, start with foods you already like. Start with foods that already fit your budget. Start with foods you already know how to cook, and let's work on adding in those helpful things. So all three categories at each meal means balanced energy, means you stay full, you stay satisfied, and cravings stay far, far away. Now, next I'd like to transition to a bunch of tips simply to help with the cost of food and the rising costs of groceries. So I'm going to throw a whole lot of tips at you. I want you to just use your pen and paper and jot down the ones that give you a light bulb moment. Jot down the ones that give you a new idea or something to try. So here we go. There's a whole bunch of tips that I'm going to throw at you. The first one is whole foods are generally less costly than refined, right? Bulk is generally less costly than single serving. There is a cost to production. There is a cost to packaging. So, for example, a yogurt container that you can put into 4 different bowls for 4 different breakfasts is going to be less costly, most likely, than 4 separate packaged yogurt containers. A large box of mac and cheese is going to be less costly than 4 separate cups where you just add the boiling water. Now, let's pause here because the most costly food is a food that you don't use and a food that goes straight to the trash. So we do want to balance this out with what's actually going to work for your family. Again, this is an area where I'm going to encourage you to go slow, to start little by little. For example, a block of cheese is less costly than shredded. Can you shred your own cheese? Then go ahead and make that swap. That's going to cost you, or that's going to save you a couple dollars. Oats are less costly than cereal. A bag of rice is less costly than the rice that's a 1-minute rice in a box. So balance out that option of buying in bulk with what's actually going to work for your family. Don't panic over organic. Now, this is a big debate. There are many people out there that will say, you got to buy organic. And I am here to say that variety and making your budget stretch farther is far more important than the label on your food. While organic does expose you to less pesticides and less things that make those crops grow properly, so it does decrease your exposure to those things, but the nutrition and the amount of vitamins, the amount of minerals, the amount of protein in that is going to be exactly the same across the board. So all whole foods, organic or not, are nutrient dense. So that is not something that you need to stress over. My next tip is don't go crazy for superfoods. All foods in their whole food form are super. So if you need to choose between a bag of bee pollen or cacao nuts and you need to choose between that or oranges, bananas, and apples, please go the direction of the variety with those whole foods. All of our vitamins and minerals are available in a variety of foods, so you don't need to worry about getting them in a fancy product. Frozen is another cost-saving tip. This is also something you can do if you have access to seasonal produce. I know I go blueberry picking at a local farm down the road in the summer, and I put a bunch of blueberries in my freezer because I have that space to do so. All winter long, then I'm not paying $8 a pint for blueberries in the store because I have paid $8 a gallon at a local shop in the summer. So frozen is just as healthy. Freezing is just a method of preservation, okay? In fact, in the winter, because of where we live and because we have such a far proximity from our food, frozen might actually have more nutrition. Think of it this way. Frozen is picked when it's ripe, it's frozen, and that nutrition is locked in. Whereas another piece of fruit might be picked before it's ripe, and it might be on a plane and a train and an automobile before it even gets to your grocery store, where it then sits for a week before you take it home, where it sits for another 3 days before you actually eat it. In that situation, the frozen item was more nutritious. So there's no guilt or shame or less than feelings for choosing frozen, okay? Another cost savings tips is buy dry. For example, dried black beans are far more affordable than canned black beans. This is true of pasta, of lentils, of rice. Same for herbs and spices. If you've got a crock pot, if you've got an Instant Pot, if you've got a good old pot that can go on the back of the stove, you can cook these things from scratch for quite a cost savings. You can also cook them in bulk and use them for several meals to cut down on that preparation. Again, we all have busy lives. We all have the stress of getting dinner on the table within a few minutes of getting home. So anything that you can batch in advance is a win-win. Do not fear the root vegetables. Do not fear potatoes, sweet potatoes, beets. These things are carbs, but they are full of energy and they are full of nutrition. They are very filling, especially for kids. So we do not need to fear them, despite common sayings out there that they are no good. I'm here to refute that lie. Choose the less popular cuts of meat. For example, a whole chicken can be used for a meal, and then those bones can be put in a pot with a bunch of leftover veggie scraps, and you can have a nourishing broth. That just saved you, how much is broth in the grocery store? Probably $6 for a half gallon these days. So whole chicken or even bone-in meats, if you're comfortable cooking them, they actually do have a little bit more nutrition because that bone marrow provides some fat and provides some bioavailability. Include some plant-based meals. While I don't believe that you need to go entirely plant-based, this is a little trick that can help your meals go farther. For example, a couple cans of beans or even some beans cooked from dry in a pot of chili is going to make that pot go a whole lot farther. Another favorite of mine is I make about a cup or two of lentils, and I add that to a pound or two of hamburger and season it up with taco seasoning and use that for all kinds of taco type meals all week long. Those lentils are pennies compared to the cost of meat, and you're still getting the nutrition of both of those. So that can definitely make those more pricey meat prices go farther. Take inventory of what you already have. I know I'm guilty of this, of just, I've got 10 minutes, I'm going to run to the grocery store and grab a couple things just to get home and realize I had those exact things or I had something in the back. Again, the most expensive food is a food that you didn't use. So take inventory and even if it's a snapshot of your fridge, like use your phone, take a picture of your fridge or your pantry before you go to the grocery store. And then if you're in the aisle, you can be like, well, did I have eggs? Let me pull up that picture and take a look. I mean, we have a camera in our pocket now. We might as well use it to our benefit. I'm going to encourage you to make a mini plan. Now, you don't have to plan out every single meal to get the benefits of meal planning. In fact, one of the exercises I have for the facilitators after this is to make a mini plan. What I call a mini plan is one thing you can batch for breakfast. If you're making breakfast, you might as well just make a whole batch, right? If you're making 8 pancakes, you might as well make 18 and put 12 of them in the freezer. If you're divvying out your yogurt, you might as well put it in 4 different jars and stick some nuts and some sesame seeds and things like that on top and have breakfast ready to go. So something you can batch for breakfast. A soup or a salad that's a quick grab and go for lunch. And like 2 to 3 dinner ideas that you know how to make and you have the resources for or you can grab groceries for. That's kind of the sweet spot that works in my house because schedules change, our week-to-week needs change, and so if I have that much of a plan, I get to think about food a whole lot less all week long, and I have stuff in my fridge ready to go, which decreases my stress levels immensely. Limit food waste by freezing for later or sneak an ingredient into something else. For example, this last week I had leftover tomatoes and I decided to make some tomato soup. Well, turns out I had half a can of pasta sauce in the back of my fridge that was going to go bad. Another week that would have gotten moldy, but pasta sauce went just fine in my tomato soup, and my husband thought it was the best tomato soup I had ever made. So don't be afraid to recycle leftovers in another way or choose grocery items that can be used for multiple meals. Carrots, for example, could be eaten fresh tonight. So I'm saying get a big bag of carrots. They could be eaten fresh with ranch dressing tonight. Tomorrow they could be honey roasted. And later in the week they could be thrown into a leftover stir fry or a leftover soup. Your money will go farther buying a big bag of carrots versus buying 3 different vegetables. So aim for variety over the month. Do not stress about variety over the week. It's okay to eat the same thing a couple times. As long as in a month's time you've got a variety, you've got different colors of fruits and vegetables represented, that can cut down on those costs immensely because you can make those bulk purchases, you can use it for several meals, and then you can choose something else the following week. So I hope that takes a little bit of a burden off of your shoulders. I do encourage you to cook at home when possible. Now, we all love a restaurant meal. We all love not having dishes to clean up. But dollar for dollar, you can cook a whole lot more food at home for the cost of eating out. So even another meal or 2 at home per week can really make a difference at the end of the month. Lastly, be mindful with portions. It's no lie that portions have increased dramatically, and simply stated, eating more than you need does increase the amount of money spent on food, right? So use a small plate with full permission to have seconds, but at least you have a chance to pause and see if you need the seconds. I know many of us, it was ingrained in us that we finish our plate, and so often we do that without even thinking about it. So using that salad plate versus that dinner plate will give you a moment to pause. Grabbing chips and putting them in a bowl and taking that to your work desk versus eating out of the bag, it gives you a chance to pause. Again, full permission to grab seconds, but the magic is in that pause. So eating well is not only about what you eat, it is also about how you eat. So I want to spend our last few minutes today talking about this topic. These next habits I'm going to share with you cost absolutely nothing, and they can also help cut down on costs by decreasing the need for fancy specialty food. here's what I see happening. I often see people jumping straight to maybe a gluten-free item or a dairy-free item before they're even sure that that is their concern. The moment they have a stomach ache, the moment they have an upset digestive concern, they jump straight to elimination diets. Well, those foods generally are more costly. They are the premium products in the grocery store because they are not the mainstream products. I'm going to encourage you to work on mindfulness first. And here's why. Your body has two states. You can be in rest and digest, or fight or flight. Two states. You cannot be simultaneously, you cannot have a foot in both of those camps. You are either in one or the other. This means that the crossover between your mental health and your food tolerance is often very blurry. So before you jump straight to elimination diets or cutting out food groups in a desperate attempt to feel better, let me encourage you to try some mindfulness practices. Some things that will calm your body and optimize digestion. This can be as simple as taking a breath before you eat, breathing with your belly. Pay attention. Look at how often you're breathing with your shoulders and take a moment to breathe with your belly before you eat. If gratitude is a practice of yours, express gratitude before your meal. If you have a community of people that you can eat with, whether it's friends, neighbors, children, community is also calming to our mental health and to that fight or flight response. Chewing better. We often eat so quickly and our brain is elsewhere while we are eating. So chew slow, eat well. This not only increases enzyme production, but it optimizes the rest of your digestive tract to absorb what you eat. So you truly are getting the most bang for your buck out of what you choose to consume. A calm body while you eat actually decreases your inflammation. It actually improves your digestion and you actually get more out of your food. Also, use your 5 senses to be aware when you're eating and present. I do this with kiddos. I'll give them like 6 raisins or an almond or a little treat, and I'll make them close their eyes and I'll turn down the lights. I've done this in classrooms, and it's so fun. And I say, all right, is that making any noise? What do you hear? No? Okay, put it in your mouth. Now what do you hear? What do you smell? What do you see? What do you taste? When we have gotten so out of touch with our busy lives where we are just eating on autopilot, there is great value in swinging that pendulum to increased awareness, even one time or even once a day, to help ground your body. And I guarantee that you will have less digestive distress, you will have less bloating, you will have less stomach cramps, you will have less discomfort after your meals if you put these steps into practice. And again, they're absolutely free. These are things that anyone can do at any time. Now, of course, if you've got a food allergy or something persistent digestive-wise, you may need to eliminate some foods. But even then, focusing on that mentality of adding in helpful things is going to get you so much farther than going straight to the premium priced products. Use those in little bits where you absolutely cannot find a substitute. So, in conclusion, I do believe that it is possible to eat well without an extravagant grocery budget. Some meal planning skills, some cooking skills does require a learning curve. And let me remind you that everything's tricky before it's easy. You are capable of learning this. You are capable of practicing this. It does get easier, and it's so good. If you're a parent like me, it's so good for our kids to have this experience of being in the kitchen, hands-on food, trying something, turning out it didn't work, trying it in a different recipe. That tolerance for failure can be so tricky to navigate, but let me implore you that it is well worth your time. The benefit of learning these skills is you get to think about food so much less once it becomes habitual. Even with the learning curve, you can experience more clear thinking, healthy weight management, and a sustained energy every step of the way. You don't have to wait to the end goal. This is something you can start with today. So that is what I have for you today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for listening. I trust that you're leaving this conversation feeling equipped to try some new things, to learn some new things, and to reach those health goals that are so important to you in a sustainable way.